Hello tech students and welcome to part 3 of the video discussion. We're still currently in the basic principles of graphics and layouts, but this video focuses more on colors. So the discussion in this video is very helpful in terms of giving you more ideas on how to create a very effective infographics. So color is determined by its hue, intensity, and value. Color is used for emphasis or may elicit emotions from viewers. Color theory is the study of how colors make people feel and their effects on a design. So color creates ideas, expresses messages, sparks interest, and also generates certain emotions. Some colors hold a universal significance. For example, it is commonly understood that red is a color for warning and green means go. Let's move on to hue versus color. So basically, in color theory, a hue is defined as or refers to a pure pigment, one without tint or shade. Hues are first processed in the brain, and hues also refers to the origin of the colors that we see. So to make it more simple and surprising, hue is just really a fancy word for color. So it's just color. So basically, hue equals colors, so they're just the same. They have the same meaning, they have the same definition. So hue is just another word for color. So let's first differentiate tint and shade. So when we say tint, this is where we add a color white to create a lighter version of the color. So a great example of a tint is pink. So pink is a tint created by adding white to red. So when we say shade, this is where you add a black to a color to darken it down. So when we say tone, tone is actually the result of a color that has both white and black added to it. So in other words, tone refers to any hue that has been modified with the addition of gray, as long as the gray is purely neutral. So let's take a look at the illustration on the screen to easier understand the difference between tint, shade, and tone. So when you add a color with white, that becomes tint. When you add black to the color, that becomes a shade. When you add gray to the color, that becomes a tone. So by identifying what is tint, tone, and shade, you can now create your own color palette. So what is this color palette? So a color palette in graphics is important because it's actually a tangible component of your design. So that is the first thing that people notices on their design. So the color actually increases brand recognition up to 80% and is the biggest reasons why consumers or viewers actually like your products. Because with color palettes, it's very important that your colors also play a large role on how your graphics are being perceived. So before you get started with choosing your color palette, be sure you establish who your audience is. Let's now move on to the difference between warm colors and cool colors. So let's start off with warm colors. Warm colors consist of orange, red, yellow, and combinations of these and similar colors. So they tend to make you think of warm things such as sunlight and heat. So visually, warm colors look as they come closer or advance, which is why they're often used to make large rooms seem cozier. If you have a huge bedroom that you want to look more intimate, try painting it with a warm color such as a terracotta or brown to make it feel cozier. So now let's move on to cool colors. So when we say cool colors, these are typically blue, green, and light purple. So if warm colors reminds you of heat and sunshine, cool colors can remind you of calmness and soothness. Most often, cool colors remind you of water and sky, even ice and snow. Unlike warm colors, cool colors look as they recede, making them great for small rooms if you want them to appear larger. So if you have a tiny bedroom or a small room that you want to enlarge visually, try painting a color such as light blue to make it more spacious. So let's move on to analogous, complementary, and triadic color scheme. So let's start off with analogous color scheme. So analogous color scheme is formed of three colors that are located next to each other on the color wheel. Analogous color palettes are commonly used when no contrast is needed, for example, on the background of web pages or banners. When we say complementary color palettes, these are comprised of colors that are placed in front of each other on the color wheel. Complementary color palettes are usually the opposite of analogous or monochromatic color palettes. They aim to produce contrast. So for example, a red button on a blue background will stand out on any interface. So next we have a triadic color scheme. When we say triadic color scheme, this is based on three separate colors that are distant on the color wheel. So mostly designers employ the triadic color scheme by choosing one dominant color and using the other two colors as accents. So let's now move on to the difference between gradient and opacity. So when we say gradient is a gradual blending from one color to another. It enables the designer to almost create a new color. It makes objects stand out by adding a new dimension to the design and adding realism to the object. Now, when we say opacity, transparency is also known as opacity. It refers to how see-through an object might be. The less opacity an object has, the less noticeable it is because it is more transparent. So the more opacity an object has, the more noticeable and visible it will be because it has less transparency. So let's now move on to the psychology of colors in film. So talking about the meaning of colors is more personal, and colors can have a different effect on different people, and cultural differences can really impact the perception of color. So let's start off with red. Red is a great color for grabbing attention. It is a very striking color when combined with black and white. It can carry a lot of meaning from power, aggression, and strength to lust, fertility, and some places in the world, prosperity. So when you see red in your compositions, it can help the viewers or readers make decisions quickly. It's almost like a color for call to action. When we say blue, blue is the color of the sky and sea. So naturally, it would have a calming effect, but it can also represent trust, pureness, tranquility, and stability. Blue is most used colors on the internet and amongst corporations, especially for brands that are related or associated with safety and cleanliness. An interesting fact about blue is that it slows our metabolism down. That is why it is considered as a calming color. So purple is usually associated with royalty, luxury, nobility, and ambition. So it is ideal for luxury brands and high-end goods and services. It is also worth remembering that purple is the least liked color by men, but it is actually in the top 3 favorite colors for women. Now, when we say orange, orange is the color of communication and optimism. It combines the energy of red and happiness of yellow, and usually it can give the sensation of heat and can be associated with summer. Orange can represent from so many different feelings and emotions, from daunting and depressing, apocalypse and deserts, to fun places like summer camps. So let's now move on to yellow. Yellow is the color of sunshine and usually represents joy, happiness, and energy. So yellow is considered the most valued color, meaning it is the purest color on the spectrum. So that is why we would normally associate the color yellow with energy. Generally, we look at yellow color, it evokes pleasant and friendly feelings. The color is often used in entertainment and toys industry. However, it can also mean that sometimes the yellow color can feel a bit childish. So yellow can also create feelings of frustration and anger. While it is considered a cheerful color, people are more likely to lose their tempers in yellow room, and babies tend to cry more in yellow rooms. Let's now move on to green. Green is associated with natural growth and balance. It symbolizes harmony and serenity. It can also be used for safety, just like blue. When you think about green, we think about traffic lights. It is a color also often used by medical and eco brands. The color pink is thought to be a calming color associated with love, kindness, and feminism. So many people immediately associate the color pink with all things feminine and girly. So whatever your intent may be when using a certain color in your designs, the actual interpretation of the color choice may be drastically different. This means that when you're creating your design for your audience, you must consider the psychology of color and decide whether the color scheme you want to choose is the best color scheme to evoke the right feelings and thoughts in your audience. Let's now move on to contrast. So a contrast is the divergence of opposing elements. Contrast allows us to emphasize or highlight key elements in your design. So contrast can be applied through the following: color, size, and shape. So what does contrast mean in graphic design? So it means determining what is the first thing that you want the viewers to look at. So a contrast causes the eye to be drawn to a particular area. So technically, it is a visible difference in properties of the design elements. So always remember, contrast creates focus. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you learned something with the discussion about colors. So yes, I hope you will incorporate all the lessons that we have in your infographics, and please watch out for the announcement in Google Classroom for more information of the activities. And I hope you have a great day today, and I'll see you soon.